the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. That's 1 Corinthians 2:9. So, I don't know if we should flip ahead. Maybe we should flip ahead and take a look at the memory verse for this lesson. Ooh, this is a big one. Oh my. I think we missed out. We should get the easy one. Oh, we better start working on this one early. Say, Mr. B, would you like to read the memory verse for the end of this lesson, please? Which is 1 Corinthians 3. Yeah.
Now if any man build upon this foundation, gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, stone, every man's work should be made manifest. The day shall declare, because it shall be revealed by fire. The fire shall try every man's work, what sort it is. If any man's work abide, which he hath built thereupon, he shall receive a reward.
All right. Whoa.
Yeah.
That's going to be we'll have to really put some effort into that one. I don't know if my back of my hand's big enough. I don't think I can write that all out, so I can stand up here and say it. I have to get the projector, but I have a wall in the back, and I can maybe cheat. Play to win. That's it. Not cheat. Play to win. All right. So I encourage you. Yeah, I'd encourage you to start working on that one, because this one's going to take a little more. It's not like the one verse where you got. Those are the easy ones to memorize. But all right, so we have lesson 6, and the title, if you look at it and read it, is what? What's the title, Janet?
One red paperclip, please.
Oh, does anybody? It's kind of an interesting. I was kind of puzzled at first when I was kind of going through my notes and got started into this one, but as we get going here, we're going to kind of see what the one red paperclip is all about. So I'll keep you in suspense for a minute. But anyway, so what we're going to do here, we got lesson 6 is reward number 3. Who can tell me what the first 2 rewards were we talked about thus far? One had something to do with significance.
Eternal.
Pardon me?
Eternal.
Oh yes, eternal. Well, the first one we looked at was the life of eternal significance. And then what we just finished was something about timeless. You guys can look back if you want. We don't want to. There we go. We had the timeless gifts of a good life. And that leads us to the one we're looking at now, which is the eternal rewards of a faithful steward. All right. So again, as we just kind of talked about, the first 2 regarded a well-lived life, the life of eternal significance, the timeless gifts of a good life, and our third one is going to be, and think about the third and final reward, or a compelling reward, is the eternal reward of a faithful steward. Okay. There's something incredible about knowing you are living your life in a way that is pleasing to God and stewarding the things that He's given you. Now, there's going to be a day of accountability, isn't there, one day, right? Think about it. There's going to be a day of accountability. There's the point at which one will meet the Lord. And there's going to be a time of accountability. And each Christian shall answer to God for what they did with their lives. As we stand before God, we'll answer what we did with our lives in serving Him. And as we go through this lesson, we'll focus on the stewardship of life and the eternal rewards of pleasing God and hearing. What do we want to hear in the end? What do we want to hear?
Well done.
Well done. Good and faithful servant, right? That ought to be our desire as God's people to strive to do. Will we be perfect? Will we do things perfectly? No, but we ought to strive. We ought to live and try to be found in God's will in all that we do. So as we go through this lesson, we want to focus on the eternal. We think about eternal living, a life that will endure the test of time. All right, so as we go through our lesson here, we hope to understand and embrace the accountability we have before God and the stewardship towards an eternal purpose. It's not just for what we can get out of it right here, right now, is it? It ought not be anyway. There are things that God has blessed in this world and we can enjoy. There's certainly things that we can enjoy. but we ought to not be focused on enjoying everything here now and forget about eternity. We hope to understand the wrong ways that people can approach life. There are wrong ways that people can approach life. We understand, it has here the thought that, we're going to talk about college a little bit too. And when we started our lesson here, how did we start out? We were talking about the culture of this world, things of this world, what the world would dictate, what the world would have you believe. So we're going to talk about some of those thoughts. Let me see here. We want to consider and begin considering all of life's choices and the directions towards the light of eternity. We ought to embrace the teachings of Christ and about the stewardship of life. And we ought to desire to begin living a life in a light serving Christ, or towards serving Christ. All right, so let's define a few words here. Reward. What is a reward? Anybody?
Something you get for doing a cause or a deed.
Pardon me?
Something you get for doing something,
Yes. And what is that something? What can it be?
like gift or something good.
Something good, okay, but on the flip side of it, you could get a reward for something, what else?
Doing something bad.
Yeah, so that's the actual dictionary verse. Something received in return for good or evil. So it can have a good or bad. Okay, how about faithful? What is your thought and your definition of faithful?
Loyal.
Loyalty, yeah, and the definition, it certainly has a thought of a loyalty, a devotion to a cause or an idea or to a purpose, a loyalty. And it has a thought of adhering firmly. When you're faithful, you are adhering, you're sticking to it. All right, and a steward. What is a steward? What is a steward?
Like a servant.
I'm sorry, what?
Like a servant, someone to serve.
Someone put in charge of something.
Yeah, it's a servant, but you're put in charge of something. You have something that's been put in your control. You're a steward. You're put in charge of someone else's belongings, and you have a responsibility for them. All right. So our text verse is going to be found in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, 19 and 20. So, did you already read anything, Janet? Or?
Just the title.
Oh, okay, that's not too difficult. We'll let you go ahead if you would read for us, please. 1 Corinthians 6, 19 and 20.
What, know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost which is in you, which ye have of God, and ye are not your own? For ye are bought with a price, therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit which are God's.
All right. Okay, so here we go. So we're going to think about this a little bit. As we go through this thought, there's a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm going to skip around a little bit here because I'm going to switch around because we don't really have any young adults that are just kind of going into college. But let's per se what is the culture of the world of college? What is the culture? What is the world view on college?
Basically need it to succeed.
Yeah. Now, there's nothing wrong with college. College is needful. You want to be a surgeon or a doctor. There's many fields that we need college education. But what is the world culture? And the world culture is if you don't go to college, you're not going to be successful. You can't be successful. I don't know, has anybody ever heard that? I was told that if I don't go to college, I'll probably not be much, or you won't amount to anything. And ultimately, it's not a matter of college. It's a matter of being found in God's will. There are people out there that go to college. There are people that need college, and they're in God's will. And there's nothing wrong with college. But we're taking a look at it as from the perspective of the world, what the world will let you believe. You think about some of the disciples, and that kind of popped up in my mind. And they weren't well schooled, or they weren't, you know, how did that verse go? I just kind of thought of it, but it was, they didn't attend school, they weren't what?
Unlearned.
They were unlearned. It said in the Bible they weren't learned. How did they know so much, you know? I think if we're found in God's will, and if we follow God's leadership, we can, there'll be blessings. Okay, so let's think about it. What if someone asked you about college? What would you say if someone asked you about college? Let's say, I'm just kind of flipping around, because there's people that went to college, there's people that probably haven't gone. I haven't gone to college. So it's kind of a topic that I don't want to diss college by any means, you know, but I just want to just have a little discussion, you know. What do you guys think of college? If someone said to you, man, I'm thinking about going to college, I don't know, what would you tell them?
Make sure you know what you want to study.
Yeah.
Otherwise you waste a lot of time and money too.
Okay, yeah, and that's what we're gonna talk, and we're just gonna talk about reality here. I'm not talking about it, like I said, I don't want it to be a smash bash thing about college, because I don't think it's anything. If it's God's will for you to go to college and you're pursuing a career in something and you need college, that's where you gotta be. And I think Sister Jen hit it. There's a lot of people, what's the culture of going to college right now? What would you say?
I went to college right out of high school because it was the thing to do.
Okay.
But I had no idea what I wanted to study.
All right.
So I came away with a lot of debt.
Okay, so the reality is, if you don't know what you're gonna do, or if you're not, you know, I mean, if you go because you think you have to go, well, one of the realities is you can go and come back with incurred debt. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, John, you had your hand up.
Well, I went 4 years for business management, I'm doing construction now.
Okay. And, you know, sometimes is that all bad?
No.
No,
Well,
I mean-
I have my degree to fall back on, but one thing I noticed is, growing up, it was always college, 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 even the world was like, you gotta go to college, gotta go to college. And look at it now, at least from what I hear, there's trades struggling to get guys,
Sure.
because they all went to college.
And that's where I kind of want to go to, is there's nothing wrong with college. And if I had a choice, I never went to college, and I got to thinking, if I ever was to go back, or if I was to live it over again, trade school, you know? You think about trade school, there are trade schools out there you can go to, and but you need to know what you want to do, you know, and you need to be, you know, walking with the Lord, being led of the Lord, and you need to be found. Sometimes now we think about what gets us going. Is there anything wrong with having dreams? Is there anything wrong with wanting to be a fireman? Or is there anything wrong, you know, as kids, you know, you think you grow up, you know, as kids. I'll ask, Dan, did you ever grow up and say what you think as a kid, what you wanted to be? Did you ever run around with a fire helmet on or something, or run around with a garden hose and I'll be a fireman? You know,
I used
there's-
to have a fireman kit.
But think about it, as young adults, we grow up, and in our lives, we grow up, we want to be something, you know? Whatever that be something might be. But we need to be aware of, and we need to be in prayer, you know? We need to, be in prayer and desire to be found in the Lord's will. Ultimately, we need to be desired to be found in the Lord's will. Like I say, we think about, and we're thinking about the realm of our lives. We think about our lives. What is successful? You know, I think of my classmates. I'm going to go back and I'll think of some of my classmates. Not going to use any names or anything, but I'm going to think of some of my classmates. And has anybody ever gone to a family or a class reunion? I went to one.
We've never had one.
I went to one. But you know what I found it was who was successful. But what was the determination of being successful? Yeah. It was who had the most, who was the wealthiest, who was in the best position in society. And no outlook for eternal. We're talking about eternal rewards of a faithful steward. So again, college is great. College is needful. But is the purpose in your life college? What are some negative impacts of college? I mean, there's pros and cons and everything. Just being honest here. I'm not trying to talk anything bad about. What are some what happens to a lot of people, or what can happen?
You get a lot of-
Pardon me?
You can get drawn into a lot of the wrong crowd.
Get drawn to the wrong crowd. There's many people that have been, you know, serving the Lord in the way of the Lord. College changed them. I mean, let's face it. It's just the honest truth. drawn out, unless you're a strong, grounded Christian and you've got good support group around you, possibly, you know, I mean, obviously the Lord can keep you, and the Lord will keep you and hold you on it, you know, but boy, I tell you, the temptation's great, and let's face it, there are people that have been drawn away from the service of the Lord. Once grounded, once serving the Lord, went to school, everything's different. So I mean, you know, there are things that, there's some ways, I wrote down here, there's the culture, worldly ways, and there's your ways, oh God, desire to be in God's ways. Let me see here, and then that comes back to our text verse. What's our text verse again?
1 Corinthians 16:20.
Yep, let's read it again. Go ahead, I guess, Aunt Rose, you wanna read it for us again, 1 Corinthians, it's in your book, you have it, it's,
But know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost which is in you, which ye have of God, and ye are not your own? For ye are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's.
which are God's. So, we think about culture, and we talked about culture and talked about people not wanting to grow up, right? Think about the culture of, there are people, obviously, that are determined, that have a mindset, and they are set to go to school for a purpose. But what is the other side of college? Just being truthful here, just being honest. What's the other side of going to college? For the honor. Huh?
Going to parties and.
There's just the living up life, you know what I mean? It's just reality. It's, you know, it's true. So we think about what are some of the, let's say, what is the outcome of someone that has the wrong purpose of going to college? Well, they're gonna acquire a lot of debt, right? What else is gonna happen?
I can think of 4 people that I knew off the top of my head that were really conservative and were like really loyal to the church and went to college. And now I probably wouldn't even want to talk to them anymore just because of the way they live their lives. Like, they totally changed their entire life
So,
because of just the influence.
influence, which can lead to disappointment. You know, there's disappointments that come. You end up going to school, you end up disappointed, maybe not knowing what you're going to do. Maybe start all over again.
I
You know.
think it has to do with the character of the person.
Yes.
I was never drawn away from college. And I have come around, there's a bunch of people that I know that have their degrees, they're junior executives for Ford, and I mean, they're fine.
Oh yeah, and I'm not up here trying to bash. I'm just talking about pros, cons, reality. You know, and ultimately, it's the big question is like say God's will. You know what I mean? And someone that's in God's will, or someone that's found.
You know, but my cousins too, they have doctorates in math. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
Steve and Scott Barthagen, one's a college professor.
They're not using it.
Yeah, one's a college.
Steve's not.
Steve ended up, having
Went
a
crazy,
mental,
yeah.
had a mental break.
Yeah, well,
He got all caught up in that stuff and he just burned out.
Yeah, he burned
And
out,
he moved
so.
back to his dad's farm and took it over, and he's still really successful. And he still has the experience of college to help him. But I'm just saying, it's not like that everywhere.
No.
It depends on where you go too, like some colleges are they really push the liberal agenda, so that's gonna affect how you think, you know?
Yep.
Even if you don't go to that, it's still in your head.
And then we think about what is the thought behind college? What is college
It's
supposed to
higher
do
learning.
for you?
It's higher.
And it's supposed to, what does the culture of the world tell you though? It's supposed to teach you what? It's supposed to prepare you for what?
Like,
Does college really prepare you for life?
Depends on what classes you take.
Yeah, he's just asking questions, you know, I mean, there's a quote here, it has from, I'm gonna find it here, let me find it. There's a quote from, I'm gonna find it. It was in a Newsweek article, it was a discussion that two young ladies had, and this was their comment. It says, my friends and I graduated from Westland, Bernard, Stanford, and Yale. We had a 3.9 grade point average, and we won the academic awards. Yet none of us knew what a Roth IRA was, or could master, or could handle our basic tax forms. You know, and it's just it's, how do you want to say it? You need to just be aware, and know, how do you want to say it? It has to hear the thought of the culture trap that is set up here. And you think about what is life, what does the culture tell you? Oh, you go to school for 4 years and you have a degree. Is that what it really is? It's more than 4 years. You know, so I mean, it's just a matter of just being aware. And like I say, and that's where it's so important. You know, Dan had the thought when he read it out of Jonah. You know, God has a plan. If you sway from God's plan, you know, you will make it. You know, but there's God's divine will. We need to just be, you know, as God's people, or if you're seeking to serve the Lord, you should be in prayer and discerning His ways and being sensitive to the leadership of the Holy Spirit. And not follow what is the reasons for what you're doing. Is it because culture tells you, or the world tells you this is what you must do? Are you doing it because you're afraid of what other people might think if you don't do that? You know, so I mean, again, they're just thoughts. You know, and what would you tell someone that asks you? You know, I don't know what to do. See, you know, well, someone comes and says, I don't know what to do if I should go to college or not. You know, it's just something to think about. So it has here the thought that, again, not saying you ought not go to college, but there are truths about it. But college alone does not get you ready for adulthood. And we think about it, if anything, it can potentially postpone your adulthood by putting away and just kind of, you know, pushing things off, writing things off, you know, not being determined and growing up per se in life, having a sense of maturity. And we think about it, sometimes you can go to school, but, and I've always kind of thought this, you can have people, I thought this back in the grocery days, there's a balance, per se. You have college people that write programs for software. Maybe Sister Jen, you know this too, maybe, or anybody, but they write software for programs for, per se, I had a simple thing, groceries, ordering groceries. Someone wrote a program, they were probably a college whiz or computer whiz, but the program they wrote really didn't meet the needs of, what's the word I'm looking for, hands-on or basics for my order. It was a great program, probably the way they wrote it, but it wasn't compatible for what I really wanted to do. So you have people that go to school and they can be educated, but they can also become foolish or be foolish or fools.
I think a lot of it depends on, even in high school, they can be influenced. It
Yep.
depends on how strong they are in the Lord, I think.
And a lot of people, and sometimes too nowadays, and I don't know if you guys noticed it, but common sense, I don't know, there's just no such thing as, you know, you can have all kinds of book smarts, but no common sense. And it has the thought of no wisdom, no understanding, no direction, no purpose, and can be drawn away from God, no God. So, let's see here. A person ought not go to college to get ready for life. You ought to embrace life and get ready for eternity. That's our thought. We think about that. We ought to embrace life and get ready for eternity. Adulthood is not a destination, it is a preparation phase for something much bigger and much better. And we ought to see the big picture. We ought to desire to see the big picture.
I heard this on TV the other day. It was on a show actually. The guy said, "What's the point of college?" And the point of it is to show future employers that you went to a certain place for a certain amount of time, you showed up, and you did decent at the work, and that you have that ability, and that's what to show future employers when they hire you, like, oh, this guy was able to go to a certain place, proper long, and complete tasks and maybe that's something they could teach him, but I just thought that was interesting, I never heard it that way before.
Okay, and then when we think about the culture, what is culture and what is the thoughts of this world? And we talked about it in our lessons previous, immediate gratification, right? Think about it, you know? Think about it. Think about if I walked up to you and said, here's $100 right now, okay? But if you wait for 6 months, I'll give you 1,000. How many people would take that? Take that. And that's what we think about eternity. Right now, we're living this life in this world. We live in this culture. We got to be careful not to get caught up in this culture. God's people. We got to be careful not to get caught up in this world and forget about eternity. Eternal, as we had in the title here, is our eternal rewards of a faithful steward. And I'm trying to think of someone. Who's that guy from Dirty Jobs or whatever? Mike Rowe, or is that his name? Let's say I was trying to think of someone who's kind of neutral, and it's kind of someone. Say Mike Rowe showed up and said, "Hey, I'm going to give you, I'll give you $10,000 right now, but if you wait for 3 years, I'll give you $10 million." I mean, how many people would take the instant money? There's a time to compare. And the thought, and we ought not, and again, nothing against college. I'm not talking anything bad about it. College is not a cure-all. It's not the answer. Everything is. You gotta be careful.
It does help you though when you're looking for a job. Like my 3 sons, they put their name in this one place up north, and Tommy was the only one that went to college, and they called him there because of his college. So
Yes.
it does depend on the employer.
And unfortunately, that's kind of the way the world's kind of made now too, because you can take it's kind of that's kind of the way business works. If you don't have a college degree, you can't get a job in certain ways. That's what, not because someone can't do the job. You have probably people that can do the job better than someone that's an educated person, or as far as gone to school on it. You can have someone hands-on learning that can probably do the job just as well, but because it requires a 3-year degree, you supposedly can't be hired. But that's not, it's a help. There's no doubt about it. But ultimately, again, it's just a matter of, are you in God's will? That's the biggest question. A person just needs to remember to always be in God's will. He uses the illustration of his daughter. My daughter has a real problem. Her 6-year-old head is exactly the height of most side mirrors on car doors. Her height is not the problem though. Walking with her head down is. And he's using this for an illustration. But walking with her head down in parking lots is a problem. This kid, as precious as she is, he says, she doesn't get the thing with car mirrors. She said the other day he was at Walmart, Target, or a grocery store. She whacked her head on a car mirror because she's usually deep in thought, maybe sidetracked, And as we need to be as God's people and as the Lord's people, we need to be we don't want to be sidetracked. We don't want to get sidetracked. But she'll be thinking on something, maybe a toy, who knows what, not looking up, and smack, she hits her head on a car door mirror. And you would think after time she'd figure it out, but here we go again. She hits another mirror and hits her head, turns around, spins around, hits the back of her head on another mirror. And it has the thought here that it's hard to laugh and be sympathetic at the same time, but he says he's going to get her a motorcycle helmet. That'd be helpful. Or a bike helmet. Then that way when she walks through the parking lot, she won't hit her head. But it has the thought here is, so this is what our culture is doing. Walking through life with our heads down, being sidetracked and smacked. And we're not learning lessons. Every few years, their lives, they make bad decisions, their lives change. Stop walking with, and has the thought of encouragement to stop walking with your head down. Life is bigger than this moment, and we think about, living in this world, this present time, but we ought to be thinking of eternity. We ought to be thinking of of eternal rewards for being a faithful servant. But as your life is much bigger than this moment, life is bigger than the next 5 or 10 years. Life is bigger than your lifetime. It's about eternity. It's about the time that you understand the rewards of living with your head up, looking far forward. So reward number 3, and that's where we're going to come through and we'll start going over here again next week. The eternal rewards of a faithful steward. A couple lessons ago, we saw how the first reward was embracing life of eternal significance in God's plan. Then we saw the second reward, the timeless gifts of a good life. And while these first 2 are related more to time itself, this third one is bigger yet. It will require you to lift your head up, look into eternity, to look forward, and to determine now. Excuse me. It is determined now, but won't be had until heaven. So we'll pick up next week with that lesson. And we'll pick up with the second thought here. God's excessive goodness just keeps on going. So that's what we're going to pick up next week. And with that, we'll, and again, I just want to clarify, I'm not trying to say that college is wrong, college is bad. Just trying to have a conversation. Oh, number for the first one, college isn't the cure-all. That was the first one. I'm trying to be careful how I went through it, trying to kind of, college is needful, but just thinking of it from our culture, the way the culture teaches it, it's a must. You have to have it, or you won't be able to be successful.
The only reason I say that is because statistically, people with degrees make more money than people with degrees. And that's the only reason I say go to
Unless
college.
you're talking about trade school.
And then statistically, are they happier? There's all kinds of things.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything bad
Yeah.
about people who don't go to college, but just statistics say that people who have a degree make more money.
I think they did in life too, right?
I don't know
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
You get more money. But if you're in God's will, and that's where the red paperclip's gonna come in. When you're in God's will, we're gonna talk about that next week. It'll make more sense. Jerry, you got your hand up?
Yeah, when I worked in California, I had a boss that he was like a electronic whiz. He could design circuits. He knew way more than all the engineers that we ever hired, electronic engineers. And he'd design circuits for a company and everything, and they wouldn't give him the title or the pay of an engineer, but he proved himself to be better than any of the engineers they ever hired. That kind of bothered me.
And that's where the culture's set up, that you're kind of, it's a trap. But anyway, we'll pick up next week, and we're gonna be talking about God's excessive goodness just keeps on going. And I'm gonna ask, John, would you please dismiss her? Casey, you got something?
I think, it's one of those things, at least if I'm understanding correctly how you're saying it, it's like, the culture more so pushes that once you're done with school, you just go to college regardless. If you don't know what you want to go for, you go to college. That's kind of what it pushes. But I definitely think if you have something that you do want to pursue, and you do feel, yes, this is where God's leading you, then there's much benefit in going with the purpose, with the thought behind it, with the plan. But
Yep.
just the thought of, oh, well, everyone goes to college, we're going to go, we're going to party it up, we're going to go live the life, figure out where we want to be. I think that can be more where the danger is, because you're kind
Again,
of
it's
just
the
following,
motivation, yeah.
you're just kind of following other peers, you're not necessarily, maybe you don't have a vision,
What will other people think if I don't go to
Yeah.
college? I thought that for a while. Man, I'm a failure, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I found myself to be in God's will. I'm happy, I'm content, I've been blessed. And what is happiness? How many dollars do you have to make to be happy? But again, it's not, what I did in my life is not what anybody else does, but it's like saying, you need to be, ultimately, my most important thing is, you need to be in God's will. That's it, you know, not doing things because that's what the world tells you, culture tells you, and that's what people expect of you. That's what God would want, so. All right, Brother John, if you